Hello everyone, hope you are doing good. So in this video, I'm going to talk to Mr. Rahat. Rahat is working currently in Vancouver, Canada as a tech lead. He has experience working with FAANG and he has already developed and delivered more than 300 web applications and published a book on hybrid mobile applications as well. So this video is really insightful and filled with a lot of information. So I recommend watching it till the end. I get a lot of questions from students who want to just come out of the India and want to get a job in Canada or some other countries. So in this video, we are going to share a website and the step-by-step process. How can you do this as well? The second most important question is how much DSA you should be learning, data structures and algorithms for front-end developers, for UI developers, for back-end developers, and for the roles, like different roles, senior software, junior software as an intern. So we are discussing this thing as well, like how much DSA algo you should be learning and preparing. And this is not just enough to prepare for interview. We are also discussing how you should be utilizing the skills after you are into the job. Like, do you write the vanilla code? Do you write the DSA algo things on the daily basis in such FANGs? So we are discussing this question in detail as well. The one more important thing we are discussing in this video is like how you can start from a non-IT to IT career. So a lot of questions are coming like I am doing BCom honors, I am doing like a non-IT stream and I want to get a job into the IT field. So we are discussing this as well. How can you start? Studying is not just enough. So we will discuss a point where you can actually get the like practical experience of doing it and grab a job in the IT. Moreover, we are also discussing the code quality things, and this is going to be a healthy developer discussion as well. So we are talking about the code quality, best practices we follow there and here, amount of work pressure we get as a product-based company and service-based company, and a lot more. So I recommend watching this video till the end, and do not forget to subscribe and thumbs up this video. What generally are the responsibilities as a tech lead for a front-end role?
Yeah, so front-end role is has like a lot of opportunities as most of the apps have moved into web, and there are a lot of architectural responsibilities. Firstly, for a tech lead,
Mhm.
that if you're a tech lead, you are responsible for an architecture decision, maybe for a new feature or a new project altogether. So if you have to create a new web app, you have to do some architectural decisions regarding a framework to choose. Like content is the most difficult part for a tech lead or an architecture, because there are new frameworks every day coming, or maybe every 6 months a new framework comes in. um, and like it's very difficult for you to be an expert in all of those frameworks, and without any bias decide the pros and cons of every framework. So I think one of the main important things about a tech lead should be that they should be well versed with the underlying concepts of JavaScript, browser, APIs, etc., so that they can make an important decision. So architecture is one responsibility, and the second major responsibility is performance. Like performance on any web app for a
Mhm.
scalable project where there are hundred thousands or millions of visitors daily. So you should be very cognizant of the fact that your web app is performant for those users, and those users can really use the app and get the benefit out of that quickly. So performance is one of the responsibilities, and then uh, as a tech lead, you're also responsible for mentoring other people or onboarding other people into JavaScript. A lot of times in big companies, people tend to join, like the juniors who join from directly from campus college. They are not very familiar with front end, because unfortunately our college syllabuses don't teach front end, and they just teach the normal Java, C++, etc. Even if they teach front end, they just teach basic HTML, CSS, but not like the JS frameworks or the core JS as such.
Mhm. Yeah, that's the reality and that's truth. My second question out of the answers from your first answer is like, how about the role of data structures and algorithms? Because in big companies, they hire on the basis of those skills. But when it comes to the day-to-day job and like, as you mentioned, like targeting million of users, million number of users, performance. So how do you like, they use it on the daily basis? Like, what is the relevance of that?
So there are so there is a misconception, like before joining any company or before, like in college, or even when we prepare for interviews, we are saying, oh, prepare for DS algorithms, etc. So they are not very much relevant in the day-to-day work, but you should at least, like, not the advanced ones, like people talk about binary trees, this trees. They are not so much relevant, but you should know about the basic concepts of the data structures and basic concepts of certain design patterns if you want to uh, build elegant solutions. Like, there are multiple ways to build, say for example, a sidebar, right?
Mm-hmm.
A sidebar is the most basic part of a
Yeah.
web app, but in order to create an efficient or a scalable sidebar, you need to know about trees, right? How nested children work, or how nested trees can work.
Mm-hmm.
In an advanced website, you may create a reordering of this sidebar, drag and drop, etc. And if you do not use the correct data structures to model your uh, view model layer or the component hierarchy, then you will be stuck somewhere. So they are important a part, but I think more what I have learned, I never learned them like for the interview sake, it's that much, but learned it throughout my career when I was implementing things. And so your thought process should be that if I am to implement a particular problem, even if it's for an interview, then you should know about the base data structure and implement them. And like, so earlier the front end interviews were more generic, but now the front end interviews are more specific to front end. So you can say that for the interview sake, don't go through like all those competitive programming exercises, but know the basics so that you can use them in your exercise when you do an interview.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when we say about like writing the best practices, like following the best practices in the code base, so like if they are about to launch a feature or like any like additional thing in the code base or any web application, and if they are in a hurry to deliver it, do they still follow all the best practices, or is it like just deliver it and then we will keep on checking gradually what's going to happen?
So generally, I've seen people being cognizant. Like, so there are two kinds of industries I've worked in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I've worked in a service industry. My first company was Genpack Headstrong, where we were creating like for clients. And there, I think they always, like, for any service company or consulting company, there will be time bound things like you have to deliver a project in this particular time.
Mm-hmm.
And there they would push you for just give the solution and don't over optimize right now and do it. So people tend to like not use it and just complete it, right? But in product companies, I work with Flipkart and other big companies where people get, it's not, there are not very much time bound projects, but you have to implement projects maybe in 6 months or so, etc. And you have to use those best practices, because once that project is there, it will remain forever as a product and it will be used by a lot of people. So you have to use it. And then there can be scenarios where you say that, okay, I will implement it right now in a simple data structure, maybe not
Mm-hmm.
optimized, but you have to keep a task in hand, etc. in those task management apps where you will keep remembering to refactor it and improve it later on.
Okay. Yeah, that actually practically very strong because in the product base where like the application is launched and people are waiting to use that feature, we should be very sure about it. And for the
Yeah.
coding practices, and how about the like if I ask one personal question, like how about the number of comments people get on the pull request for like product based companies? Is it like because the feature is out then out, like a lot of people, million people are about to use that. So the amount of like comments on the peer, how's that process goes on there?
So I think it depends on number of members in your team on your project who understand that project.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, in product companies, there are more people working on the same product, and there are also sometimes cross product people who collaborate on certain things. So there are more comments. on that, etc. In service industries, in service companies, I've seen like your work being reviewed by the client. So there are certain client. So
Mm.
so in a service company, I think there would be like a contractor team, which is like if you are in a service company, you, and there will be a client dev team or a client tech team who will constantly review your code and
Yeah.
give feedback. So, but I so number of comments, I think um people fret that they should not receive any comments and just receive the tick marks. But
Mm.
I think comments are very good part of introspecting your code, even if it is right. Sometimes people may give you some solutions that may not work for your scenario, but if they are posting comments, then you know that they have gone through the code and your code has been vetted for, like, yeah,
Mm.
because so that's very important, I think.
Mm. That's true. That's sometimes stressful whether like I'm getting so much comments what I have written and should I be like not doing it. But that's the reality, practical thing.
Yes, so in my starting of my career, maybe I was like very conscious of sending the maybe PR request to only those people who would give me approval. But
Mm.
then I found out that that was only like hampering my quality of work, right?
Mm.
At the end of it, when your PR gets merged into the product, that's your work, not the PR which you raise, right? So
Mm.
after you fix things which are suggested by your peers, if you improve the quality of your work, that is better for beneficial for your career.
Yeah, that's truth. That harsh, but that is the truth. You have to face
Yeah,
the reality.
yeah.
And what about the like code of vanilla, writing the vanilla code in like JS instead of even if we are like using a React or other framework, the amount of vanilla code, what is the quantity of that?
So I think, in my opinion, also no code. So I read this line somewhere that no code is the best code. Like,
Mm.
so that is, and I try to follow that since I've read that, like,
Mm.
so you'll get only bugs if you have some code lines. The less number of code lines you will have, the less number of bugs can be, or the test coverage you have to write, right?
Mm.
So generally, these frameworks create abstractions, but sometimes those abstractions are redundant or not very much important.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah. So, and I've been advocating for web components since last 6 7 years. So yeah, if you I did like 5 years back when web components just started, 5 or 6 years back. I
Mm.
in a JS conf in Bangalore, I proposed about web components and I was propagating for it. And I've been using Stencil JS. Stencil JS is one of the great web component library that
Mm.
compiles your code
Mhm.
into native JavaScript code without much of abstractions.
Thing. And how about like adopting new tools and libraries in your current project? So like as something as soon as it arrives in the market, and like do you like in such big projects, like do you incorporate it as soon as they arrive, or like what is the process?
So what process I have always followed in my career is, as soon as the next, so sometimes they're like, so we as front end, as I say that there are so many projects coming day in day out, and but we can't use everything in like production scale, right? Because sometimes those have bugs or those are just beta projects, right? So
Mhm.
what I tend to do, and I wouldn't want to even miss on latest technologies, right? I don't want to miss the performance enhancements or certain in the future.
Mhm.
So I generally tend to start a personal project
Mhm.
or tend to start a hobby project inside my company,
Mhm.
which in that particular framework, or and keep on and maybe launch it internally or launch it at a small scale, get feedback and seeing the evolution of the framework, right?
Mhm.
And if the framework is at RC release candidate phase or out of beta, then we can, and we are liking the results in that personal project or hobby project, then we can try to pitch it with supporting data and facts to any of our leaders and try to adopt it in the real projects.
Okay. What is the expectation for such big companies for a new developer who is coming in, like for at least 4 or 5 years of experience, who is just a front end developer? What they expect from that? Like,
So I think for a developer with 4 to 5 years of experience, generally, as a front end developer, you are expected to at least Mm, you should not, we don't expect to be expert in every framework and but you should be at least expert in the framework you mention on your CV which you run, and you should know about basics about JavaScript. You should be able to learn a new framework as well if you are told to do that, because a lot of times every company has its own project, or even every team in a company have its own personal choice of framework, right?
mhm,
And you should be able to easily understand the basic JS concepts and adapt your framework knowledge of the earlier one framework into another.
mhm,
Because so one more thing is the frame where the framework bring certain design patterns to the web app, right? Like a view model rendering or optimize it, like the virtual DOM rendering, an optimized rendering, or some performance, some server side rendering. So you should know about these basic high level concepts of frameworks as well, apart from the JS basics.
non-technical question, but just like a lot of people in this time, whether a session is going on, whether people are just trying to move into the IT, what can be the best advice for them? Because I get a lot of messages that I am doing my graduation from arts, from economics, but I just want to move in as a front-end developer. So what are some basic essential thing you will suggest to those?
That's where I'll just give so front end development is a very uh, important skill, not only for like software development but for digital marketing. So I think that's a very sweet spot where people can enter into front end development. Like they can even enter into digital marketing jobs like a digital marketing manager, etc., where they can build certain social websites for brands, social websites for uh, like their social interaction, for media, landing pages for ads, landing pages for so this is very important to know. Like people get into that mainstream that okay, we learn front end developer, we have to develop the full website or something, right? But these days front end developers even develop emails, develop hybrid mobile apps, like certain landing pages inside mobile apps using HTML,
Mm-hmm.
then full blown these social management websites, etc., embedded websites, etc. So yeah, there are a lot of things where people could enter into, like these marketing, digital marketing sphere, apart from the mainstream front end development or etc.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and also people can um, rather than like in this market, I suggest to anyone or all of my friends, rather than going finding full-time jobs also, these days you can find top 10 freelance projects, etc., which can give you a runtime of 3 to 4 months, give you experience, and then you can go. A lot of time people only like think about getting job and not doing anything in between, right? They just prepare for interviews and be free for 3 4 months. But at least rather than being free for 3 4 months, you can freelance in a very less time, or intern with companies as a front end developer and get experience. A hands on is very important for getting the real job.
And yeah, that's practically correct. But like a lot of people just are focused to get a job, so they don't do anything. They don't like
Yeah,
their skills.
yeah. So that's one of the thing which I want to maybe share, my career journey.
Mhm.
Like how in India, everyone like, so I graduated in 2012. At that, or I entered my college in 2008,
Oh,
and I at that time IITs were like the main, like everybody was, there were so many IIT coaching institutes, everything, and people were saying that okay, that is the only way to get a good job in a good company, etc., right? And I never believed in it, and I never studied for IIT. I had my passion for computers. So I started my first web development company when I was maybe 13 or 14 years of age.
oh,
And yeah, and I I even started like when I was 13 14. I made, there were, at that time there were yellow pages,
yeah.
online yellow pages. So I used to call. I used to call manufacturing. Uस time at that moment, even the websites were not required for digital companies, or like there were only brick and mortar companies, right? There was manufacturing units, etc. So I called people to get their website made websites in 5,000 INR, that is like $100, $100 or so.
Yeah.
And yeah, and tried to gain the experience and slowly learn. So I like, even after graduating from college, or during my last final years of college, I used to constantly get these freelance projects and learn the web development, which would help. The hands-on experience, you want a job, right? But you don't have skill. Like there is a, as you know, that there is a talent gap between what the college teaches you and what the companies require, right? If you don't bridge that gap, you'll never get a job, right? So in order to bridge that gap, you have to do hands-on projects.
Yeah. Until you do not know how to like do it end to end and practically doing it, ultimately you are going to do that job only. So you should,
Yeah.
if you're already aware, then it's definitely a plus point. That's amazing to know about you, that you did like that you started from there to like calling people, delivering the websites, and you have delivered like more than hundreds of websites, right?
Yeah, I've delivered more than 200, 300 websites.
That's amazing. So you're doing it since that time. And you published a book on to the hybrid mobile application development, right? Ionic. So
Yeah.
what do you suggest to people? Like if I ask you personally, what is although it depends on to the complexity of the app, but how comfortable you are compared to web app to the mobile app? Like what do you suggest if somebody is starting, they should start with what?
So, so these days, learning JavaScript or front-end development, as you say, that hybrid. So there was this time when hybrid mobile development was very, very popular, like 5, 6 years back. These days, more than hybrid mobile development, there is another term called cross-platform mobile development, which is more like you write in TypeScript or JavaScript, but the actual code running on the device will be native. So there will be a bridge between your code and the native component. So I think that is more successful in the industry and more popular. So people should maybe, if they want to learn about React Native, etc., Kotlin, they can learn about those things. But you'll use your JavaScript skills for that. But you'll do. But in the other part, in the other side of things, like when you make a website, it is a foundational concept of responsive web design that you should know about creating a website for any mobile device possible. You should, these days you never create a website for only desktop. So that's like, I think, a foundational concept that everyone should learn apart from basic JS skills, like how to do media queries, how to do CSS, adaptive layouts, how to write those things, and how to have the best experience for mobile with PWAs, having manifest files, having share icons, shareability in the code. One essential thing is people these days, front-end developers, tend to miss out on learning HTML and CSS. Like they say that, okay, JavaScript, TypeScript, we'll learn that. But the end-to-end learning is learning CSS and HTML for creating end-to-end websites. Like a lot of companies these days, because of this problem, like people used to learn only TypeScript, or people used to learn only HTML, CSS. Like the people who like design only used to learn CSS and HTML. So
Mm.
these days, in big companies as well as medium-sized companies, they have UX developers who just do CSS and HTML, and then there is JavaScript developers who just do JavaScript. But then there is like a divide, like the end-to-end understanding is not there. So there are a lot of time wasted in interactions between the CSS developers and the JavaScript, because these days sometimes the adaptive websites require JavaScript as well as CSS HTML in the same feature.
Even like in addition to your answer, I completely agree because when I was interviewing some folks, they were like saying that I know React very well, but do I need to still write the CSS for the components? So that's a big question, and they write it like frequently in their CV that I know HTML, CSS. But if you ask the basic questions, they say like, okay, everything is there. Do I need to write it manually? So that's definitely a point to admire and work on that.
Yeah. So I think a lot of why people don't learn these things because of the UI component libraries like a material library available, right?
Mhm.
Material JS or Ionic JS is library which gives all the styles, and people don't write styles. But I think if you for big companies or or if you have to create a product which is very focused to a niche brand or your, so you have to customize these base component libraries a lot so
Mhm.
that you can create your brand specific components, etc. So you have to know the CSS, and because people generally while learning just do it for the sake of showcase, etc. But yeah, they should learn CSS as well.
Lot of people is like wants to come to Canada or some other country. They just want to go outside on the basis of job. They don't want to go for studies and do it. So is there any way for big companies to like they can consider their talent and like bring them to here? Is there any like a way to do that?
Yeah, so so a lot of people ask me the same question, and I want to really help everyone in this way. But if you understand from from the perspective of companies, like they don't know anyone from so far. They have to invest in their like if companies hire somebody from abroad, if it's a good company, they will not want to not spend for their movement, for their temporary stay, for their like settlement here, good settlement here. People just companies can't rely that they will the candidates will do everything on their own, right? So the candidate should be very, very tightly screened before they are approved or hired directly from a company abroad, right? And this was a big gap where only big companies could invest in this screening, in this kind of screening, right? Amazon, Microsoft, I think were the only companies which hired like this.
Globally.
Some other companies like Shopify, etc. But yeah, very few companies. But um, there are so now there is Canada has one of the biggest, like the best service in this regard called vanhack.com. So they provide an official screening process for all those companies to quickly onboard people. So they have a lot of tests on their website where people could give these coding tests and etc. and get certified. And then they will be having express interviews where people can sponsor their visas, work permits as well. So this is a very nice. So they cater to Europe as well as Canada. So they hire people from India, from Brazil, South America into European and Canadian markets. And I have seen like hundreds of success stories of people who have done it successfully in the past 2 years.
That's definitely insightful and helpful. I think this was really really nice talking to you, Rahat, and I got to know a lot of things. And I believe that people who are watching this will be getting a lot of information, and this should be consistent what they are doing right now.
You can share my Twitter ID to everyone. And if anybody has any question or any guidance required regarding front end development, user UX development, I would be happy to help.
I will definitely drop your like Twitter link there. Amazing.
Sure.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this was helpful for you. So do not forget to subscribe this channel, and I will drop all the possible links in my description so you can follow and go along. All the best for your future endeavors, and see you soon.